Surprise! I'm back early. Welcome back to Dre TV.
Welcome to you all at home.
You've still got a chance to win this race, haven't you?
Just drive. I wanna be the only one to make you
Hey guys, Harrison One back at once again with a brand new video for you, and welcome to episode 7 of Dre TV. As promised, this is the Ask Dre All Questions Considered special. How this is going to work is simply put, I had so many questions on my last proper episode 5 at the time of recording, that I thought, if I put them all in episode 6, it's going to be a 40-45 minute video, and I don't really want that. I don't really want these videos to be more than half an hour, really. Like a proper TV program, for example. Once it goes beyond the half an hour mark, people start to lose interest. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and keep this to, I'm going to try and get through as many of these as I can. I'm going to try and hopefully get through them all in about half an hour or so. Luckily, there were some questions that were all quite similar, so I can answer them as a group. And yeah, in general, I just wanted to get all of this out there, and yeah, just have a chance, to, obviously, for you to hear my opinion on things, and just generally get my take on certain things. If you guys have a question for a future episode, feel free to drop it below. Again, just hashtag it Ask Dre, and I'll see if I can get it into a future episode. Like I said, I will do this more often now again if you guys want me to. These all questions considered editions are easy. They're much easier to edit and put together than a standard episode of Dre TV, which is obviously just more pictures, music, gameplay, all that fun stuff you guys love to see. So this is just me just talking into a camera, which is what I seem to be best at. So let's get straight to it. In advance, apologies if I pronounce anybody's names wrong. I struggle with these things sometimes, but I'll do the best I can. Okay. At the top of the pile, let's go newest first on my comments. Yeah, I'm just pulling this up right in front of me as it goes on. Okay, question from Aljit Dobra. Again, I hope I pronounced it right. He also asked, can anyone join your prediction league? Absolutely. I'll put the link in the description if you want to join. Remember, top 3 win prizes at the end of the season. The number 1 winner will receive a copy of F1 2014, I should say, on the platform of their choice. And the top 3 will all receive a Harrison 101 t-shirt. They are coming out in the next 2 weeks, I promise you. I'm getting the website put together soon, so it's going to be part of the package, which should be sweet, hopefully. But yeah, his other question was, how much will Force India be able to challenge for more podium finishes? I think they're going to struggle, to be honest. Why? Because I think the field right now is constantly shifting. Ferrari seems to be on a bit of a downward turn. Williams aren't looking as strong as everybody thought they were going to be. Red Bull seems to be slowly going back up. Mercedes are breaking out. And if Mercedes being as strong as they are pretty much means if they don't have any mechanical problems, they'll be 1 and 2 for the time being. Which only leaves 1 podium spot left. Can they be the best of the rest against Red Bull, Mercedes, Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari, Williams, maybe even Toro Rosso? It's hard to say, and Force India have got money problems. They are one of the 3 or 4 teams in the field that have financial difficulties. So it's always going to be more difficult for them to be able to develop their way towards getting another podium. If they're going to do it, it's going to be soon. Maybe Monaco, if they can qualify really well and they can stick it up there and have them play defensive, they can maybe get a podium there. But the longer it goes on, the less likely it will be, I would say, because the other teams will probably outdevelop them in the long run. That's how I see it. What are your thoughts on the IndyCar series from Woody477? I don't watch IndyCar, to be honest, so I can't comment. Sorry about that. Jonah Boone-Yarrett, I think that's how you pronounce it again. Sorry if I got it wrong. Who do you think will be Constructors runner-up after Mercedes? I think Red Bull will end up being second place after Mercedes. Red Bull, I think, are the number 2 team right now. They'd be in much better shape if they didn't have the 18 points from Daniel Ricciardo's illegal car from Australia, if you want to call it that. But I think so far they've shown they seem to be the best of the rest. Force India struggled in Malaysia, but they were better in Bahrain, and it's a bit up in the air right now. But I think Red Bull will probably develop their way as good as they can, and Renault are still playing catch up, so they're only going to get better in theory. So I think Red Bull will end up finishing in second. Let's see. Andrew Bannister asks, do you think that the Mercedes inter-team rivalry will end up in Rosberg and Hamilton becoming enemies and their relationship start to crack, or do you think that they will get on the same way despite the high stakes? Good question from Andrew. A lot of people have asked me this and what I think on this situation, because I think a lot of people are making the comparison to Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber when they were together at Red Bull Racing over the last, I think, was it 4 or 5 years. They were together as a team, and how their relationship, if you want to call it that, started to fall apart around 2010. The difference between that situation and the situation between Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton is that Rosberg and Hamilton have already been friends. They've been friends for a long time. They've raced as teammates since before they were in Formula 1. And I believe they are very close friends, despite Nico not actually following Lewis on Twitter, but we'll ignore that. For the whole, those two, I think, have a better relationship compared to, say, a Vettel and a Webber kind of situation. And on top of that, you got to remember, if there was meant to be a big crack between the two Mercedes drivers, it probably could have already happened, given that there was team orders at Malaysia 2013 last season between Rosberg and Hamilton, and they seemed to get along fine afterwards. So I think if it was going to happen, it probably would have happened by now, considering how evenly matched they tend to be now and again. So if it was going to happen, it probably would have happened by now. Maybe if they have a crash like Turkey 2010 when the two Red Bulls hit each other, maybe the situation will change. But for now, I don't think Rosberg and Hamilton will have any kind of problem there, to be honest. Sam Carpenter, aka NF Gaming, asks, considering how well Mercedes have done at China in the past, 2010 podium, 2011 5th with Rosberg, 2012 possible 1-2 and a win, 2013 pole, and Merck's domination this year, do you think we could see the biggest win ever in F1? Well, I remember guys like Senna and Prost when they lapped the field back in '88, the entire field. I don't think that'll happen. I don't think Mercedes are that much stronger than everybody else that they're going to lap the entire field. I mean, if you look at the margins of victory so far this season, I mean, Rosberg won in Australia by 26 seconds, I think, from Ricciardo, or Magnussen now, technically speaking. Malaysia, Hamilton beat Rosberg by 17 seconds, but the nearest Red Bull, or the nearest car that wasn't a Merc, was Vettel's Red Bull, and he was 24 seconds back as well, I think, and Perez was 24 seconds back after a situational safety car blast at the end of Bahrain. So they're not destroying the field completely to the point where it's going to lap people, or lap the majority of the field. It hasn't gotten to that stage yet. It's not like even Canada last season where Vettel lapped everybody up to 6th. So I don't think that'll happen. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Mercedes are just that much more powerful. Maybe I'm missing something, but I don't think that'll be the case. Green Day Senna fan asks, I fully respect that everyone has an opinion, but do you feel that when Vettel isn't in the lead, he is more prone to mistakes, as it could be seen that he struggles under pressure and battling? I disagree with that statement. It's an across-the-board thing. You're always going to be more susceptible to making mistakes when you have people around you. When you're battling with people, you're always more risky of making a mistake, and that just comes, and you're always going to be under pressure as well when someone's chasing you from behind. For example, if you look at Germany 2013, where the majority of the race, a Lotus was within 2 seconds of Vettel's car, and Vettel had a broken curse tank in that Grand Prix as well, and during that last stint, Raikkonen was breathing down his neck the entire time, and Vettel drove perfectly, given the situation, to win in the end. I think a lot of people are focusing on Canada 2011, for example, when Vettel choked on the final lap to let Button win, or maybe Bahrain where Ricciardo beat Vettel fair and square. So, you know, maybe it's that, but at the same time, you know, it's hard to say. Vettel has been blessed with a very fast car, and he's had the ability to be able to win from the front better than any driver in modern history. Yeah, I know that the fact came up that Vettel's never won a race from lower than third, and the majority of them are from first. But isn't that what you're kind of meant to do when you qualify on pole? The thing is, not everybody is blessed with being the best qualifier, like a Fernando Alonso, for example, that has won races before from further back because he's not a stronger qualifier. So, you know, it depends on how you perceive it and how you judge it. It's subjective opinion at the end of the day, but I don't think it's a situation where, oh, he's not in the front, therefore he's making mistakes. That's not quite how it works. In my opinion anyway, at least. Paul Cantave asks about the US team led by Gene Haas. You can see that on episode 6 of Dre TV for my full thoughts on that. Joseph Willows asking, going on to a topic from episode 5 of Red Bull considering changing their engine suppliers. If Renault are still playing catch up at the halfway point, which engine supplier would you like to see them have out of Mercedes, Ferrari, or potentially Honda, as they are returning as an engine supplier next year? It's a no-brainer. It's got to be Mercedes, hasn't it? You know, Honda have said that, I think recently, I think as early as yesterday, they said that they don't want to supply multiple teams. So it's looking like Honda are going to be exclusive to McLaren next year. So rule them out of the equation from now. It's between Ferrari and Mercedes. The issue is, would Mercedes give their engines to a direct rival? And clearly the team that's second best to Mercedes right now in terms of reputation, and not just this season, but Red Bull have been the strongest team in Formula 1 for what, 4 seasons now, 4.5 seasons. So would Mercedes give their engines to a direct rival over their own works team to try and, because doing that would directly, to a degree, balance the playing field. Not completely, because the works team would get priority and the works team would work with the engines directly to get the best out of them. But I don't think Mercedes would give Red Bull their engines, because it just doesn't make sense from a competitive standpoint. Ferrari, maybe, but again, same argument. Would Ferrari really give their engines to Red Bull, considering that that's the team they've been trying to beat for the last 5 years? Probably not. So that, I mean, yeah, Marco probably would consider changing teams, but the reality of the situation is he'd probably find it difficult to be able to even do that, if he even wanted to. Taj Kamikals, I should say, says, in China, Lewis was on pole last year and Rosberg won in 2012. Who do you think will have the better pace? I would say Hamilton. I think Hamilton's in the form of his life right now. I think he's at his absolute best. He loves the car. He says it's the best car he's ever driven. Hardly surprising given his recent form. Rosberg was great in China last year, but I think that was kind of a freak instance because everybody else was fighting each other for second. It was a dogfight the whole race pretty much. So yeah, I would say Hamilton over Rosberg in this situation. If it was Bahrain, I probably would have said Rosberg, because Rosberg is very strong around there, but you know, Hamilton's been good around China before as well, so yeah. Joe McMillan asking, with potentially 2 new teams coming into Formula 1, do you think that the quali rules where potentially 8 drivers are knocked out of Q1 and 2 needs to be changed to accommodate this? Yeah, it probably will. I mean, we've had this qualifying 3-session format for a little while, and at one point we only had 20 cars on the field, I'm sure, so it was only a 5-5, then top 10. Now it's obviously a 6-6 top 10. So if there was 24 cars, I'm assuming they would just up it to 7-7-10, and then 8-8-10 if the field got bigger. So I'm assuming they would just ratio it out to balance up with the rest of the field, so they've only got 10 cars at the end. That's how I see it anyway. It just makes sense that way. Again, so yeah, the rule's been around long enough that they've been able to adapt it. So yeah, it should work like that. The Maxinator. Do you think there will be another race this year that will be as good as Bahrain? Probably not. Bahrain was a 9 out of 10 kind of race, and I don't give 9s out very often. Bahrain was a fantastic race, it really was. Battles, like, Bahrain had pretty much everything you could want in a Grand Prix. It had a battle for the lead, it had a battle for the podium, there was fights, battles, and brilliant passes all through the field. You had drama with a safety car, you had a stunning accident with Maldonado and Gutierrez, you had guys coming up through the field like Daniel Ricciardo, who was starting in 13th place. It had everything. Change of strategies, the lot. There wasn't much more you could have asked for besides rain, and it doesn't rain in Bahrain, period. So, given Bahrain's geographical circumstances, it wasn't going to get much better than that, really. It will take something on the level of Canada 2011, I think, to top that, in my humble opinion. It's going to be a big one. I don't think anything will beat Bahrain this year. I'll be very surprised if it does. Okay. Ask Dre. Love the video. So my question is, given the races so far, do you think that Ricciardo or Webber is a better driver? I know it's really early to tell, probably too early in fact, but I'm just curious on what your take is. Perhaps this is a question better suited for the end of the season or seasons to come, but Ricciardo's performances thus far have been stellar, and I would like an opinion on this. You kind of answered your own question on that one, Oblio 1942. It's too early to say, really. We've only had 3 races. Vettel, and the other thing is, we haven't really had a race where both Red Bulls have not had a problem. Obviously, Australia, Vettel had the engine issue and had to retire early. In Malaysia, Ricciardo was screwed by his own pit crew. And in Bahrain, Vettel had his entire weekend ruined by his spin in free practice 3. Because it was compromised, the setup was compromised, and then they couldn't qualify properly because they were qualifying blind. His last lap had downshift issues, and during the race it wasn't where it wanted to be. I think a lot of people have hopped on the wagon of Vettel had one bad race, and now it's like, oh god, Ricciardo might actually be better. You've got to see if the pattern keeps moving, because in Malaysia people forget, until Ricciardo went in the pits, Ricciardo was like 15 seconds behind Vettel. So, you know, I think that was the clearest point we've seen that Vettel's probably a shade above Ricciardo still, but again, we've got to wait and see. I'd say you'd probably need 2 or 3 seasons to get a real idea, because freak years can happen in Formula 1. Like, look at 2004, Jarno Trulli had a better season than Fernando Alonso did. So sometimes these things happen in Formula 1, you know. I don't think even one season is a more conclusive thing, but it's looking like Ricciardo is a little bit better than what Mark Webber was. Webber was solid, but Webber was never really that spectacular. He had moments of brilliance, but Ricciardo has been, I think, very good for Red Bull so far, and he seems to have been the challenge for Vettel that a lot of Red Bull fans wanted. Because I know at the time a lot of people were begging for Raikkonen to join Red Bull so they could push Vettel. Looking at how Raikkonen is now at Ferrari, it's looking that may have been a better idea not to sign him at all in the first place. Next question, again, Newey4824 asking about Gene Haas. Again, see episode 6 for that one. Barnsey saying, Ask Dre, do you think that it's possible for a driver to pass out in the car because of the weight situation? You said Rosberg was going onto the podium in a more challenging race like Singapore. Is this possible due to the dehydration? Absolutely, I would say, Barnsey. It's definitely a possibility. Driving without a water bottle is ridiculous. It should not happen. I know teams are desperate to make the minimum weight or get as close to it as possible, but I think it's ridiculous that drivers have to go without water. Like in places like Bahrain, Malaysia, like I said, Singapore, which is the worst on the calendar for physical health and strain, because it's such a slow track, there's such a large amount of G-force, and you're in the car for over an hour 50, coming close to 2 hours. I mean, Singapore last year was a 2-hour race. It was literally 2 hours on the dot when Vettel crossed the line. So, by far, Singapore is the worst on the calendar. So, it's a possibility. These drivers are extremely fit, and I'm sure they'd probably be okay. but it's not a risk worth taking, in my opinion. Driver safety should still be of the #1 concern to everybody. At least that's how I think, anyway. I think that's it for the comments on my YouTube page. I'm just going to double check now by clicking the top comments. Don't forget to check the links in the description. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter as well. Links in the description there. I'll put my Instagram in there as well, because I put some behind the scenes shots like that on there as well sometimes. Yeah, there's a possibility as well. Just double checking the page here. Just runner up, Newey asking questions. Just bear with me 1 second, folks. Yep, that's everything. So I'm gonna go to my Facebook page now. Forgot a few more on here, a couple of MotoGP ones. Peter Stano asking, do you think that McLaren will come back to the podium after 2 not so good races from them? Probably not, to be honest. I think McLaren seem to have overestimated their own ability this year, if that makes any sense. I think they had Magnussen 2nd place and Jenson Button's 3rd in Australia, and I think Ron Dennis probably blew his load too early. Given how Australia was kind of a freakish race anyway, given it was the first time these new engines have been tested out properly over a race. Obviously, as well, the fact that Hamilton and Vettel didn't take any part in that race at all from a competitive standpoint. It probably gave McLaren a false sense of security because they struggled in Malaysia. They weren't very good around there. They had engine issues the whole way through, and then in the race looked mediocre. And then Bahrain had a double clutch problem. So McLaren are looking average right now. They're looking about where they were last year, which isn't wonderful for them, considering that they had the 2nd and 3rd. So clearly they had something, but it's looking like they've gone backwards a little bit so far. I hope they bounce back though, because that would make things a lot more exciting at the front. Richard Evans asking a bit of a background question of what is the difference between a factory team, an open class team, and a satellite team? I think Richard's confused himself a little bit there, because the rules have changed, because you can be 2 of these 3, because basically you can be like Ducati, which is a factory team, but also an open class team. Basically, if we were taking last year into account, which before the open class rule was brought in, a factory bike was the team that is directly sponsored and powered by the manufacturer themselves, like the Repsol Honda team, which is directly run by Honda themselves. The movie star Yamaha team, again, directly run by Yamaha, and the factory Ducati team, which is again run by Ducati. The satellite teams are the teams that often get a lot of support from the manufacturers, but are funded and run by brands like the Monster Energy Tech 3 team, or the Pramac Ducati team, or the LCR Honda team. They are run by sponsors, and through private companies, basically, that will pay them to run their team. They often get factory support, though, like Stefan Bradl's LCR Honda, or Alvaro Bautista's Gresini Honda team, which again another factory-supported team, but technically a satellite, or Andrea Iannone for Ducati's Pramac team, if you get my drift. And then you had the CRTs, teams that were... The CRTs are the bikes that are built from... It's basically like Colour My Numbers but for MotoGP, where you could basically custom build your bike using leftover parts from other teams, and they often got benefits from doing this to try and make them faster, like giving them softer compound tyres and ability to use more engines over the course of a season to try and level the playing field a little bit. Didn't really work because no CRT was ever getting inside the top 7 really. Now the open class, the open class has been done to try and make the field more competitive. If you're now an open class runner, basically how it works is you get given softer tyres, you get the chance to develop your engines and ECUs over the course of the season, only until 2016, because when you get to 2016, everyone will be on the same spec ECU anyway. but you get to develop your engines and you get to have more fuel in your bike. Like, I think it's 24 litres rather than 20 in an open class bike instead of 20 for the factory bikes. You know, the factory bikes are the Repsol Honda team, the Movistar Yamaha team, the Tech 3s, Bradl's LCR Honda, and the Bautista's Gresini Honda. Redding's customer bike, technically speaking, is a factory bike, and the 2 factory Ducatis. Everybody else is an open class runner, basically. So I think one more we've got to bear into account as well. If the open class bikes, I think, get 3 podiums in the dry, they have to stop development on their bike. So basically, basically it's the way of Dorna Sports saying we want you to be good, but not too good, basically. I hope that cleared up some of the confusion there, Richard. James Francis White asks, who is most likely to be Marquez's nearest challenger, in brackets, not on a Honda? Jorge? More than likely. Jorge Lorenzo, probably. I must admit, though, it's not looking good for him, considering Lorenzo is already 44 points behind Marquez in the championship. So, if the biggest threat to Marquez will probably be his own teammate in Pedrosa right now, but Pedrosa doesn't seem to be on it that much either. He seems to be a shade behind Marquez at the moment. Well, everybody is really, by the looks of it. Jorge Lorenzo has not led a racing lap so far this season. So if you take Lorenzo out of the equation, then what do you have? Valentino Rossi? Maybe Stefan Bradl? Maybe Bautista? Maybe even Bradley Smith? I mean, Bradley Smith has shown great improvement this season, so maybe him as well. Finally, I just want to check my Twitter. I think it was Josh Lem who asked me a question just before I go. Just going to double check. 1 minute, folks. Again, I didn't really plan this out very well, I guess, in case you couldn't tell already. Let's have a look. I think it was Josh Lem asking me, do I think Marc Marquez will overtake Agostini in terms of titles won? I'm going to say no. I think it was a different sport back then when Agostini won. I think Agostini won 15 championships, I want to say, which is a lot. Marquez would have to be consistently good for 15 years, which is a tough ask, given... I think the main reason why I say no is because the level of competition in MotoGP is higher than it's ever been before. I mean, if you look at the top class now, the talent pool is immense. You have Marquez, Pedrosa, Lorenzo, and they're the elite 3. You've got Valentino Rossi, maybe on the way down, but he's the greatest rider of the decade. You've got Bautista, which has been knocking on the door for ages for an opportunity. Redding is probably the best British talent we've had since Crutchlow, who has been surprisingly good considering he was a Supersport guy. He wasn't even a World Superbike rider. He came from Supersport and has done pretty well for himself, as a matter of fact. Paul Espargaro, Bradley Smith, Andrea Iannone still only 23. I mean, the talent pool is immense. If you go further down, Maverick Vinales, Alex Rins, Marc's own brother Alex Marquez, Luis Salom, Tito Rabat, Dominique Agata, Nico Tirol, basically, Efren Vasquez and Jack Miller, Romano Fenati. It's an incredible level of depth that I don't think we've ever seen in MotoGP 2 and 3. So I think there'll be another Marquez coming along in the next 3 or 4 years. Maybe it's already Maverick Vinales for all we know. I mean, the way he won in America for a 19-year-old in a sport that you normally need 2 seasons to get the best out of was incredible, untouchable, unlike anything I've ever seen. So it's going to be it's hard to say for sure, but if I had to guess, I don't think Marquez will get to as much as 15. I think we're looking at the next Valentino Rossi. I don't think we'll ever get another Agostini. Probably. I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but that's how I see it anyway. And that is everything. Thanks everybody that watched the episodes of Dre TV this weekend. I really appreciate it. You guys are the best, as always. Much appreciated. I love you all. Thanks to getting me to 4,500 subscribers. You guys, like I said before, you're the best fans in the world. I adore and I love you all. Your support is untouchable. It's amazing. It's incredible. I haven't got enough superlatives to describe it. So, thank you all so much. You guys are the best. Leave a like if you enjoyed me asking these questions. And if you've got another one for a future episode, just drop it below. Much appreciated, guys. I'll catch you guys later. I'm going to go to bed. It's 20 past midnight here. Until next time, I've been Harrison101. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Sayonara.